Hey everybody, Backpacker Luke here, and today we're going to be answering the question, or we're going to start answering the question of how do I start backpacking? Now, this is a really big question, and I'm going to actually break this question down into a bunch of different videos on the entire question of how do I start backpacking. I'll end up going over planning your first trip, finding the right trails, what apps to use, safety, gear, all that kind of stuff, how to pack your backpack. Some of these videos I've already made, but I'm going to make a whole playlist of them. But we're going to be answering just the first part of this question today, which is knowing what your goal is for your backpacking trip. Now, while I'm making this video for people who are new to backpacking and they're just asking the question of how do I start, this video can also be really great, and this series can also be really great for people who have done multiple backpacking trips. And a lot of these questions I'm going to be asking and answering are questions that I still ask myself every time that I'm planning my next trip. So that's what we're going to get into. The first thing is knowing what your goal is for backpacking. So I've broken this down into three main categories, and these kind of overlap, and there's a lot more reasons to go backpacking, of course, but I've found it helpful to kind of break it into like these three types of categories. The first one is to just kind of have an easy, fun backpacking trip. Now this one, especially if you're new to backpacking, might be for you, where you're just saying, I don't even know if I enjoy backpacking or if I want to do this long term, but I want to go on my first trip and see if I enjoy it. So just an easy, fun hike, something that's kind of like standard elevation. You're not doing a bunch of gain and loss of elevation, more of a flat trail, easy hike, easy backpacking trip, maybe 3 days on the trail total, that kind of thing. So that'd be like the first category. It's like an easy, fun one. The second category is a challenging backpacking trip. Now, this is one that I most often do. So when I'm planning my backpacking trips, I still ask myself these questions. And most often, more than not, the second one is the one that I usually end up going for, which is a challenging backpacking trip. I love pushing myself as much as I can within my limits, and I know what my limits are, but I like the challenge. I call them roller coaster peaks, but just up and down an elevation change, rugged terrain, out in the middle of nowhere, all that kind of stuff. So if you're looking for a challenging hike, this one might be for you, or a challenging backpacking trip, excuse me, this one might be for you. And this would be best, even if you're a new backpacker, but you have a lot of physical fitness and experience out on the trail, or if you feel very confident in your ability, you can maybe do a more challenging backpacking trip for your first one, and that would be for you. The third category is a unique kind of backpacking trip. What do I mean by this? It would be mostly something like, the best example is something like the Camino de Santiago in Spain. I did that trail a number of years ago, and it's like 500 miles, but it's from the border of Spain and France, and then you go all the way west to basically the ocean in Spain, and you end at Santiago de Compostela, and it's about 500 miles, but you go through all sorts of different terrains, and you go through like hill country, and you also go through sort of an arid desert area, and then you also spend a lot of time in hostels and towns and villages and all that kind of stuff. So it's more like a unique trip than anything, and there's different skill levels involved there, but you're also able to sleep in beds at night, sleep in hostels, go get a drink at the end of the day when you're done hiking, go get coffee in the morning, that kind of stuff. So it's more of a unique experience, and one that you'll be talking about for years and years later. And that's sort of the third category, is above anything else, it's just a unique experience. So now that you've answered the question of what kind of backpacking trip you want, the next question to answer for yourself is how to find the trail you're looking for. And I'm going to give you some really practical tips on this in just a second. But to answer this big question, you can ask yourself three kind of sub questions there. First one is the location you're going for. So is the most important thing the location? The second one would be the length of the trip you're going to be going on and the length of the trail you'll be going on. And the third one is the time and season. So you need to figure out which one of those you want to prioritize the most. For me, for instance, I love doing location over almost anything else. So I'll pick a place that I want to go to backpack, and then I'll kind of cater the length of the trip and the time and season around that. Or you might be someone who wants to go see fall foliage a bunch, and you really wanted to see the changing of the seasons. So you're going to prioritize going on a fall hike, an autumn hike, and then you're going to pick the location and the length of time that kind of matches that. And you got to get the picture with that. So the practical point of this is I'm just going to go over a couple of quick apps or websites that I would recommend for starting to look and find a trail, because that is one of the questions I always have to ask myself. I've been doing this a very long time, and I still find myself trying to find trails sometimes and trying to figure out how do I even get started looking for an actual trail that I want to go hiking or backpacking on. Now, there's a couple of apps you can use and a couple of websites I would recommend, and a couple of caveats with that kind of stuff. So the first one would be to look at recreation.gov. They have a lot of really great trails. It's also where you're going to need to go to most likely get permits for backcountry permits and camping. and trailhead permits and all that kind of stuff. So recreation.gov is a really great site to go to find short hikes, day hikes, backpacking trip kind of length of trails, all that sort of stuff. It's a great place to start at. The second one would actually be social media, to be honest. So Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, is if you just start looking at and searching for backpacking trips and trails and all that kind of stuff, you're going to find nature photographers who have said, like, I took this photo or this video on this trail in this state and all that kind of stuff. And you can kind of just start pulling those threads together there and saying, okay, I really want to go to and see that mountain. And I've done this before. I really want to see that, that mountain lake. So I'll plan a trip to go see that lake, essentially, and kind of cater my whole trip around that. The next one is to use something called All Trails. That's a website and an app. Now with All Trails, I do want to kind of say that usually the reviews for the difficulty of an All Trails hike or backpacking trip, I think, is a little bit overestimated. So for me, when I'm an experienced backpacker, when I'm looking at a trail on all hikes, when I'm looking at a trail on All Trails or a hike on All Trails, I will, if it says that it's a moderate hike, I'll probably consider that an easy hike. If it says it's a very difficult hike, I'll say, it's probably an intermediate kind of trip, that kind of thing. So with All Trails, I usually scale down whatever the estimates are. And that's just the experience I've had on All Trails. Someone else might say differently, but that's from my own personal experience. Another one is called Far Out. It used to also be called Guthook, but it's an app. They are an excellent app. They have great mapping, they have great navigation, and they have some really great trails on there. They're still developing their database, so they don't have every hike you can imagine, whether it's a moderate length hike or a short hike or a backpacking trip, all that kind of stuff. They're still kind of working out their database and adding hikes and trips to it and trails. But when they do have it on their app, I really enjoy them. The third one is the one that I actually use while I'm out on the trail. It's called Gaia. Gaia is amazing to me. You can download all sorts of different types of maps. You can do topo or satellite or street or USGS maps, all sorts of stuff. And I think they are really excellent, but they take a little bit more practice and skill to use because it's a little bit more like a true GPS device, but I really love Gaia. So that was a very simple, quick rundown of how to start backpacking. I hope that really helped you. If it did, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the little alert bell thingy because I'll be making videos on this series for quite a while. So I want you to keep up to date on them if it helps you. And once again, I really hope this helped you out. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below, and I'll try to answer whatever I can, either in the comment or by making another video about it for you. So just let me know how I can help you out. I'd love to. Thanks. See ya.